Okay, good afternoon. Welcome to our daily press briefing online and live on EBS. Today is Tuesday, the 23rd of February. Allow me to start with the agenda of the college meeting for tomorrow. First, the college will adopt an EU strategy on adaptation to climate change. Executive Vice President Frans Timmermans will come to the press room to present this file along with the readout of the college meeting. The college will also discuss the launching of the first stage consultation of European social partners on how to improve the working conditions for people working through digital platforms. This will be presented here in the press room by Executive Vice President Margrethe Vestager and Commissioner Schmidt tomorrow after the readout. And finally, the college will adopt a proposal for a new regulation on roaming to allow travelers in the EU to continue using calls, texts, and data abroad without extra charges when the current roaming regulation expires. Now, I will call on Balázs, who has an announcement on our humanitarian support inside and outside of the EU.
Good afternoon. So, the EU is coordinating the deployment of a medical team to Slovakia to support intensive care treatment of COVID-19 patients via the EU civil protection mechanism. Now, as a first step, Romania has offered a team of 5 doctors and 9 nurses specialized in intensive care. The EU is also mobilizing additional personal protective equipment, including 600,000 FFP2 protective masks and 650,000 pairs of gloves to Serbia from its rescue medical reserve hosted by Greece. Since the beginning of the pandemic, as a reminder, the Commission has helped 13 EU member states and participating states via the Civil Protection Mechanism and rescEU. Now, turning our attention to Myanmar. The Commission is also making available 39 million euro in humanitarian aid to address the needs of displaced and conflict-affected communities in Bangladesh and Myanmar. Humanitarian partners working in Bangladesh and Myanmar will receive 24.5 million and 11.5 million respectively to respond to key humanitarian and disaster preparedness needs. An additional 3 million euro will address vital protection needs of stateless Rohingya in other countries of the region. Now, this emergency support will help our humanitarian partners deliver food, nutrition, shelter, essential health and sanitation services to the most vulnerable and hard-to-reach populations, while, of course, also continuing to sustain education and protection.
Thank you, Balázs. Now I will call Johannes to the podium for an announcement on our support to investments on the green and digital transitions.
Thank you, Eric. Bonjour tout le monde. Aujourd'hui, la Commission européenne a proposé de créer 10 nouveaux partenariats européens entre l'Union européenne, les États membres et l'industrie dans le cadre de notre nouveau programme pour la recherche et l'innovation Horizon Europe. Ces nouveaux partenariats vont contribuer à accélérer la transition vers une Europe verte et numérique, ainsi qu'à rendre l'industrie européenne plus résiliente et compétitive. Ils concernent différents secteurs et poursuivront différents objectifs, tels que la réaction aux maladies infectieuses, le soutien à l'aviation propre et à la production d'énergie verte, ou encore le leadership européen en matière de technologie et d'infrastructures numériques. À cette fin, l'Union européenne fournira près de 10 milliards d'euros de financement et ces partenariats contribueront au moins à la même hauteur. Vous trouverez plus d'informations dans un communiqué de presse. Merci.
Merci, Johannes. Finalement, permettez-moi de vous rappeler qu'aujourd'hui, les ministres des Affaires européennes se réunissent pour une vidéoconférence informelle. Les vice-présidents Maroš Šefčovič, Vera Jourova, Dubravka Šuica et le commissaire Didier Reynders, ainsi que Michel Barnier, représentent la Commission au cours de cette réunion. Les ministres prépareront la réunion des dirigeants du Conseil européen de cette semaine. Ils feront aussi le point sur le plan d'action pour la démocratie européenne, la conférence sur l'avenir de l'Europe, les relations avec le Royaume-Uni et les mesures en vigueur dans quelques États membres limitant la liberté de mouvement. Le vice-président Šefčovič participera à la conférence de presse ensemble avec la présidence portugaise du Conseil aux alentours de 15h30 cet après-midi et vous pourrez la suivre en direct sur EBS. Voilà qui clôture nos annonces. Nous pouvons maintenant passer à vos questions et je passe la parole à Athanasios.
Merci, Eric. Bonjour.
Bonjour.
I bet that the representation in Athens might have sent you the news that the #1 news item these days in Greece is an alleged rig of pedophiles, including prominent members of the society, that exploited, among others, unaccompanied minors. That's the allegation. So I wouldn't ask you if it was only strictly national competence, but in the case of unaccompanied minors, meaning kids who are migrants and are unaccompanied minors, I guess that this falls also into your jurisdiction. So I was wondering, could you please remind us what are the rules, what are the measures that the national authorities should take to avoid similar situations, and if you have a protocol, I mean, as Commission, have a protocol for avoiding these cases of exploitation of unaccompanied minors in places of interest, like in Greece in this case. What is the framework? Thanks.
Thank you. I will turn to Adalbert to see what he can tell us on the issue.
Thank you very much, Athanasios, for raising this issue. When it comes to the EU legal framework that concerns the protection of unaccompanied children and teenagers in migration, I think the most relevant legal instrument would be the Reception Conditions Directive, which provides for a number of very specific rights. There are also specific rights when it comes to the asylum procedures in the Asylum Procedures Directive. But in general, the EU migration law provides a number of safeguards for unaccompanied minors throughout the different aspects of migration policy. However, I think you are absolutely right that when it comes to the implementation of these safeguards and to any possible criminal cases, this is something that is very much with the member states, and it's for the national authorities to implement and or then, if there are issues, to investigate and follow up on.
Thank you. Athanasios, you have a follow-up.
That's right. So according to your best knowledge, are the Greek authorities following these guidelines in general according to the checks that you made? Thanks.
Adalbert.
Thank you, Athanasios. I am not sure if you are referring to a general assessment of the implementation by the Greek authorities of asylum law, or to this particular set of allegations in the press that we have only seen so far in the press. But when it comes to the general implementation by the Greek authorities, it's something that the Commission monitors very closely, and also the Commission is assisting the Greek authorities, especially with financial means, in compliance with these different provisions.
Thank you. So let us stay on issues related to home affairs. Please only keep your hand raised if your question concerns this issue. I know, Tamar, that your question is on something else. James, is your question on home affairs? Okay, so no. Giovanni, question on home affairs.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Sorry, my camera is not properly working. I don't know whether you can see me. But I have a question related to a letter which I understand the Commission has sent to Germany on the borders. Sorry if the question was already asked, but I missed the very first minutes. I don't know whether the question was already asked. If not, apparently you have written a letter to Germany complaining of the lack of proportionality on the border checks with Tyrol and Czech Republic, especially for truck drivers. I just wondering if you can tell anything about that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Giovanni. Listen, we were on home affairs issues. However, I do not believe there were any other questions on home affairs, so we will take your question and open that chapter. James, I will come back to you afterwards.
Hi, yes, good afternoon. Thank you, Giovanni, for the question. Happy to enlighten you a little bit on this. Let me start by giving you a bit the bigger picture. So the Commission has been clear: without a coordinated approach among 27 member states, we risk fragmentation and disruptions to free movement and to supply chains, something we have witnessed again in the past weeks. So, as you know, last week, Commissioners Reinders and Johansson sent letters to all member states reminding them that they have agreed on a common approach to manage any restrictions to the free movement in a coordinated manner, and we expect all member states to follow this approach. And indeed, now yesterday, the Commission sent specific letters raising our concerns to 6 member states, which are Belgium, Denmark, Finland, Germany, Hungary, and Sweden, who are currently applying stricter measures than what is provided for in the recommendation, in particular bans on entering or leaving the country. In the letters, we underline the need for free movement restrictions to be non-discriminatory and proportionate, and we urge member states to align their provisions more closely with the Council recommendations that we have jointly agreed and with EU rules on free movement more generally. The member states have 10 days to reply to the Commission. The Commission is closely monitoring steps taken by member states on a continuous basis, and as you know, on the request of the Commission, also today actually as we speak, a discussion on this topic is taking place at the General Affairs Council.
Thank you very much. Christian, are there other questions on the issue of borders? Patricia.
Yes, good morning. I would like to understand what happens if the member states keep on not applying the recommendations and having these stricter rules at their borders. Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. Well, these letters address, as I said, the specific concerns the Commission has in relation to these member states. For us, of course, the aim is to find solutions as soon as possible, and we believe that this is also in the interest of the member states. We trust that we will find solutions with member states concerned without having to revert to legal steps, which can be lengthy. So member states have now 10 days to reply, and we will then take it from there.
Thank you very much. I see no further questions for Christian on this issue. James, we come back to you.
Thank you, Eric. I've got a climate question. There's been some research recently that Bitcoin uses up a huge amount of electricity while arguably not achieving very much. I just wonder if the environmental impact of Bitcoin features on the Commission's radar at all. Are you planning to do anything about it? Is there any legislation or communications in the post with a view to the 2050 net zero target? Thank you.
Tim.
Hi, James. So as you know, I mean, this is something that we say very often, that the twin challenge of our green and digital transformations have to go hand in hand. So digital technologies can, of course, help us to reach the goals of the Green Deal, but at the same time, the digital sector itself needs to become more sustainable. We were very clear on this already in the European Green Deal and also in the digital strategy, where we said that the ICT sector needs to undergo the green transformation. To give you a bit of figures, the environmental footprint of the sector overall is significant. It's about 5 to 9% of the world's total electricity use and about 2% of all emissions. So data centers, telecommunications will need to become more energy efficient, reuse waste energy, use more renewable energy sources, for example, and we believe that they can and should become climate neutral by 2030. We set ambitious targets, as you know, for 2030 and 2050, and every sector of our economy will need to contribute. That means data centers as well, whether they're used for cryptocurrency mining, as you referred to, or for any other purposes. I would also just add that this specific question has an international dimension. Most Bitcoin mining does take place outside of the EU, so it's something that our international partners will need to look at as well when they're looking at their own targets for emissions and for energy use. As you know, we're very engaged this year on our climate diplomacy work, looking forward to the COP26 in November in Glasgow. And we're really hoping to see a lot of our other international partners raising ambition in the way that the European Commission, the European Union has done over the last year or so.
Thank you very much. Are there other questions for Tim on climate change related issues today? James, you have a follow-up.
Yes, just a very quick follow-up. You mentioned that most of the Bitcoin mining takes place outside of the EU. Would this mean that it could be something where the carbon border mechanism could be brought into play in order to exert pressure, or is that just not how things work? Am I missing something there?
I mean, I would defer a little bit to my colleagues that are in the lead on the carbon border adjustment mechanism. But as you know, this is something that we're looking into. It will be quite a targeted tool. And our proposals will come in the middle of this year. I would think that probably Dan or Marta wouldn't want to add anything at this stage.
Indeed. So let's continue. Are there other questions on climate change? Please only keep your hand raised if it is on this. I know, Tamar, that your question is on something else, so we will come back to you later. I do not see any other question on this issue. Thank you very much. So we go back to Tamar.
Yes, thank you for this opportunity. I think we have urgent issue regarding to Georgia. How do you estimate the last developments? Can we expect some statement regarding this issue, and what will be the main message from Commission? Thank you.
Question for Peter.
Thank you, Tamar. The message from the European Union is that we are following the events in Georgia very closely, and it seems that with the arrest of Mr. Melia, the situation further escalated and the political crisis seemed to be deepening. And in this context, the European Union repeats its call, and we are urging all sides in Georgia to show the necessary restraint, utmost restraint and responsibility to avoid more escalation in the interest of the country and its people. The political stability in the country and inclusive parliamentary processes are important as such for the democracy in the country, but they are also precondition for dealing with the consequences of coronavirus pandemic, and they are also vital for introduction of and implementation of all the reforms, which are again very important for deepening cooperation between Georgia and the European Union.
Thank you. This opens our Foreign Affairs chapter. Are there other questions on Foreign Affairs for Peter at the moment? It seems to be the case. Athanasios, we go back to you.
Thanks again. Peter, it seems that there is an exploratory vessel sent by Turkey in the middle of the Aegean. It's called Sesme. I'm not sure if it's international waters or not that it's floating on. But are you aware of the case? Did the Greek authorities raise it at any level? Maybe yesterday at the Foreign Affairs Council? And what does it mean for the whole process that we have towards March and the decisions on Turkey and so on? Thanks.
Thank you, Athanasios. You know that currently we are in the stage when the High Representative is preparing his report as required by the December European Council. He will submit it to the European Council in March. And the issues between the EU and Turkey are a subject of discussions among the member states. They have not been discussed in depth yesterday. They were mentioned briefly because there were many other issues on the agenda of the ministers, but this is something the European Union and its member states have in their minds and are watching this. And as I said, all this will be taken on board and reflected in the report which will be submitted by the High Representative on way ahead or way forward in EU-Turkey relations for the March European Council.
Thank you. We continue on foreign affairs, and I pass the floor to Odile.
Oui, bonjour. Je n'ai pas pu arriver à midi pile, donc peut-être que la question a déjà été posée. J'aimerais avoir plus de détails sur la conférence sur la Syrie. Est-ce qu'il s'agit d'une conférence de donateurs? Est-ce que simplement de dialogue? Bon, si vous pouvez nous en dire plus. Merci.
Merci Odile. Nous avons annoncé la semaine dernière, 2 semaines avant,
Il y a 2 semaines?
Il y a 2 semaines, je pense qu'il y a 2 semaines maintenant, que la conférence sur la Syrie, c'est une continuation de la série des conférences sur l'aide et le soutien pour la Syrie. Nous utilisons le terme Bruxelles 5 pour cette édition cette année. C'est une conférence très grande avec beaucoup d'attention sur la situation des peuples syriens en Syrie et aussi les réfugiés syriens dans le voisinage de la Syrie. Ça contient aussi le dialogue avec la société civile. Les dates sont 29 et 30 de mars et nous allons publier plus de détails quand nous sommes proches à la date de la conférence.
Merci. Je continue sur les affaires extérieures. Lorenzo.
Oui. Hello, I don't know if you can see me.
No, we can't, but go ahead. We can hear you. It's okay.
Okay. No, it's about what's happened yesterday in Congo. I would like to know if any EU officer has been kidnapped or wounded during the attack in which the Italian ambassador was killed.
Peter.
Thank you. We have no information about such events being the case. In other words, there is no information that anyone from our delegation or from EU diplomats would be kidnapped.
Thank you. So I move now to Ragnar, who I believe had asked a question yesterday on Norway and fisheries. Ragnar.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
So this is Ragnar Skre. I'm a freelance journalist and reporting for Nationen. I would like to ask the Commission for a comment regarding fishing in the Svalbard zone. I was given answers to some of my questions yesterday by the Commission staff, but there was one question that I don't know yet whether I will get an answer to. So this is about the fishing quotas in the Svalbard zone. A Commission spokesperson wrote yesterday that the Commission is analyzing appropriate measures to counter the discriminatory measures by Norway should they not be withdrawn, and will address them with the Member States. What kind of measures is the Commission considering, and when will Member States be briefed on these proposed measures? Now, I have another question. I have asked this also to the staff, but I have still not received an answer, so I will ask it here as well. This is about foreign policy aspects of the Svalbard zone dispute. Now, 1 year ago, Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov asked Norway for bilateral talks in order to lift the restrictions on Russian activity in Svalbard. Is the Commission not concerned that a dispute about marine resources around Svalbard might weaken Norway's sovereignty in an area where other actors, like Russia, may also be trying to project their interests? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ragnar, on your first question, I know that you're waiting for an answer. The answers are still being worked on, and you will get them in due time. We cannot answer them here on the on the podium. And I pass the floor to Peter for your second question.
Thank you. On the foreign policy aspect of your question, let me remind you that Norway is a very close and important partner of the European Union. So whatever issue there is, we always strive to find mutually beneficial solution. So Norway is also a very, very close NATO partner. So for Europeans, I think there is enough stimulus, enough reasons to make sure that we find solution to all the issues we might have that are beneficial for both, and that no third party is exploiting them or benefiting from them. But as long as the procedures are ongoing in order to solve the issue you just raised, it would be really not my place to speculate whether Russia would benefit from it or not. Again, Norway is a very close partner of the European Union. It is partner of the NATO. And what we do together is focused on being together and being able being strong and being able together to solve and to face all the challenges, even on the geopolitical arena.
Thank you. So we continue on foreign affairs. Please only keep your hand raised if your question is on foreign affairs. Vince, I understand yours is on vaccines. So we will come back to you later. Please don't raise your hand. Mose.
Yes, thank you, Eric. Yes, I think my question has a relation with foreign affairs. As you know, I mean, there was an oil spill in the Mediterranean Sea last week, which polluted the beaches in Israel along a coast of 160 kilometers. And according to reports in media, it was an EU agency, European Maritime Agency for Safety, which discovered, obviously, a tanker which caused this spill about 50 kilometers from the coast. So I would like to ask if this European agency has managed to identify that tanker, and if so, if they have, let's say, provided that information to Israel, because in Israel it seems to be a court rule against investigating this case. Thank you.
Thank you, Mose. I don't believe that this is really, in the strict sense, a foreign affairs question, although I understand why it could be considered that way. I'm not aware at all of the issue, so we will have to investigate and come back to you on this issue. So we will do that as soon as we can. Catherine, you have a question on foreign affairs.
Yes, Eric. My question is about sanctions. Yesterday, we were told that the EU would be using its global human rights regime for the first time in relation to Alexander Navalny. But I'm just wondering, you had a very good contact with the Secretary of State of the United States. They are also looking at sanctions, but those sanctions go beyond their global Magnitsky Act. So I'm just wondering, are you looking at sanctions, using other regimes for sanctions that go beyond the European global human rights regime? Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. The short answer is that immediately regarding the latest developments around the case of Mr. Navalny, the decision was taken yesterday, the political decision was taken yesterday to proceed with sanctioning, using the sanctions regime, a global human rights sanction regime, to punish those who are responsible for persecution, arrest, and sentencing of Mr. Navalny, using this framework. But as you know, the sanctions regime of the EU is very wide, and every time if there is a decision to sanction someone, or I mean, it can be person or it can be entity, for some violations of human rights or international law or rule of law or democracy or etc., the member states are considering which framework and which sanctions regime is the most appropriate. So at this stage, from short-term point of view, the decision has been taken to use the human rights sanctions regime to punish those who are responsible for developments in case of Mr. Navalny, which does not exclude the possibility, if there is a need and political agreement by the member states, to proceed with other sanctions, targeting other persons or entities, using other sanctions regimes. This has been done in the past. We have the sectorial sanctions because of the annexation of Crimea and fomenting the unrest in the eastern Ukraine. We have the chemical weapon sanctions also related to the poisoning as such of Mr. Navalny. By the way, the poisoning was still not investigated by Russian authorities. So there are ongoing discussions, and when a decision is made, then of course this decision contains the framework in which the sanctions or restrictive measures will be taken.
Thank you. I see no further questions on foreign affairs for us today, so I go back to José Luis, who had a question on justice issues. José Luis, you have the floor.
Eric, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you very much, Eric. I would like to ask about the judicial reform in Spain. Some time ago, the European Commission disagreed with the last proposal, but yesterday in Spain, we knew that the two main political parties announced an agreement to deal with this reform. I would like to know, Eric, what the European Commission think about this last proposal, even being aware that these most important political parties in Spain are trying to have under control this judicial organism in Spain. Thank you very much.
Thank you. A question for Christian.
Hello. So I'm not yet done. Thank you. On the Spanish Judicial Council, I mean we've seen the reports, of course, and I can remind you of our well-known position that we have expressed in the rule of law report, but also here in this press room. But I would not have at this stage any particular comments on the talks and negotiations that are ongoing there. But of course, we continue to follow this issue, and as we have said before, it is important that the Council is not being perceived as vulnerable to politicization, and that all reforms are being done with the necessary consultation, as we have said before. So this remains our position, and we of course are following developments, but I would not comment on draft plans or negotiations in this context.
Thank you. We remain on rule of law issues. So I go to Maria.
Can you see me maybe?
Yes, we can see you and hear you. Go ahead.
Hello. It's a question on Greece and the rule of law there, because there's a prisoner convicted for terrorism, it's true, but now he's in a hunger strike since many days. Since yesterday, he's on thirsty. I don't know if it's called like this, but he doesn't drink any water anymore, and he's half step from the emergency, as the doctors say, because his rights as a prisoner, he says, that are violated. Is there any reaction by the Commission, and do you follow this case? Thank you very much.
Christian?
Thanks, Maria. We've seen the reports, but as you know, we have a very, very firm rule that we do not comment on judicial proceedings, individual cases in our member states. So this is indeed a question for the Greek judicial authorities.
Thank you. Oliver, you have a question on rule of law, justice.
No, sorry, no on vaccines. Sorry, I'll lower my hand.
Okay, thanks. All right, well, that seems to close the chapter, and we will indeed move to vaccines, but it was Vince who had raised his hand a long time ago first on the issue. So Vince, you have the floor. Oliver will come to you later.
Thanks very much, Eric. I wanted to ask if the Commission has a reaction to the comments from Dr. Tedros at the WHO yesterday, who said that even if you have money for COVAX, if you can't use the money to buy vaccines, having the money doesn't mean anything. That seems like a fairly strong rebuke of the EU after the G7 announcements on Friday of more money for COVAX, but clearly the WHO, which runs COVAX, is now saying that's not the problem, we need doses. So my question is, when you are expecting to be able to send doses, as Russia and China are already doing, to low-income countries, and whether that will all go through COVAX. I understand there's a bit of a problem with the neighbourhood, which is not on the list of the 92 AMC countries for COVAX. And there's a non-paper which the Commission circulated to member states at the end of last week, which points out that the problem with COVAX is that there's it implies rather limited visibility of member states, Team Europe and the European Union. So I'm a bit confused about whether you're supporting COVAX with these large amounts of money, but also have concerns about not getting enough visibility for the EU and for individual member states, and how that's all going to work in the next few weeks, please. Thank you.
Thank you. I will pass the floor to Anna on these issues.
Hi, many thanks for the question, Vince. I hope that you can hear me. I think, we need to separate the different tracks. I think that, the announcement that the president made on Friday, as you said, at the G7, that the EU would double its contribution for COVAX to €1 billion is a significant show of solidarity and a very strong signal of our support to COVAX, which we maintain that is the best vehicle to ensure on vaccines international solidarity. And this is why we are still today the biggest supporter of COVAX. All of Team Europe altogether has mobilized over €2.2 billion in order to help us and bring us closer to the collective objective of COVAX to be able to deliver 1.3 billion doses for the low and middle income countries. In parallel, you know that we are, as the Commission, working with the member states to set up an EU sharing vaccines mechanism that will allow, of course, our member states to be able to share some of the doses that have been procured in the framework of the advanced purchase agreements that were concluded by the Commission on behalf of the member states. All the details are still being discussed, so we are not really in a position to comment on how exactly this will be done. I think that certain principles are clear. I think that the preferred option will be COVAX, of course, because we are strongly supporting COVAX, but of course the advanced purchase agreements give the member states the possibility to share and to redirect some of the doses with partner countries, so this is clearly in their hands. In the communication that we put forth already some weeks ago, we mentioned that we would pay a particular attention to the Western Balkans, of course, but also to our neighborhood and also our partners in Africa. And we're first and foremost thinking, of course, of the priority groups that need to get vaccinated. So these are the first priorities that we are concentrating on. And then in terms of your questions on non-papers, I mean, these are internal discussions between the member states, and I don't think we would comment further. And maybe just a general comment in terms of the visibility. I think that this is not about, claiming on who does what. Absolutely not. But I think that, when somebody gives a lending hand, I think it's important also just for people to know, what the EU taxpayers are doing and the solidarity that the Europeans will bring to countries to help partner countries. I think it's also, something that's important that everybody knows, also for our own taxpayers' money, for them to show what the EU is doing. And I think that we cannot forget that, in this crisis, we're all in this together. I mean, we will not get out of this unless we're all safe. And this is why, again, first and foremost, the EU has always supported an international approach. And we are very much supporting COVAX in all of this.
Thank you, Anna. Vince, you have a follow-up.
Thank you. Yes, just a very quick follow-up. I'm sorry if I've misunderstood, but just very simply, based on what you just said, does that mean that you're prioritising the neighbourhood over COVAX, or there's a way to combine the two?
Anna.
Sorry, I don't know, my camera went off. Vince, all these things are all these things are being discussed. One thing and the other are not contradictory, and they're not, I mean, there are several possibilities, and we are discussing with the member states how best to go about this. So one thing is not excluding the other. I mean, again, member states can redirect doses for partner countries. Many of these partner countries are in different regions, and it can be done through COVAX or on bilateral. And we're just thinking how to best organize this together and really do it as a Team Europe approach, because it's the way that we're going to be able to have a bigger critical mass and bigger impact on the ground. So we're also discussing with COVAX, we're also discussing with the producers that have to also agree to this redirection of the doses, and we're discussing with our member states and with other partners in order to make sure that we can do this in the best way possible, that's more efficient and that's more streamlined.
Thank you, Anna. Oliver, we move to your question, also related to vaccines, but from a different angle.
Yes. Hello?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know if you see me.
We do.
Apparently not, but anyway. No, my question is linked to the to Commissioner Breton's visit yesterday to Puurs, to the Pfizer facility. Can you? I mean, of course, it's a big field, but can you just give us a general idea of what the Commission is trying to achieve in terms of ramping up vaccine production, but also the production of all the other things we need in order to get vaccination going? So the needles and the vials and the different little plastic parts that are apparently becoming a bit rare recently. But I mean, beyond simply messaging that this is important for Europe and for the world and so forth, what concretely can the Commission do now to ramp up production? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will pass the floor to Sonia on this question.
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Sonia.
Yes. Thank you very much, Oliver, for your question. Indeed, the Commissioner, as you have mentioned, is visiting several of the factories which work with pharmaceutical companies working for the ramping up of the vaccine production. In particular, the Commission is addressing potential bottlenecks in production and also the supply of raw materials and other essential input required for vaccine manufacturing. It will build on the ongoing mapping of existing industrial capacities for vaccine production in Europe, as well as facilities which can be potentially repurposed to produce vaccines, because this is also a very important strand to ensure that there is enough production capacity, not only starting from scratch, but also revamping what already exists. For example, this could include pharmaceutical companies not producing vaccine or veterinary medicine manufacturers. To support this, one of the responsibilities of the Task Force for Industrial Scale-Up is to act as one-stop shop, help desk for any support. The Commission will support also the pre-production cooperation between undertakings for building up manufacturing capacities. The cooperation should be limited to what is strictly necessary to achieve the specific objective in terms of research and development, production or supply, which the companies acting alone would not be in a position to do. So we will be acting as a helping hand where this is necessary, but strictly limited to specific action in order to ensure that there is also the respect of competition rules. Also, the Commission stands ready to provide pro-competition legal guidance in relation to the production of vaccines or treatments, including in light of the criteria set out in the antitrust temporary framework. The EU's investment into creating state-of-the-art vaccine and drug research, development and manufacturing capacities will be one of the cornerstones of any future pandemic preparedness and response. It will also strengthen the open strategic autonomy in the area of health and strategic positioning of the European health industry. The above actions will contribute to the creation of an EU FAP project, a network of ever-warm, single or multi-user, single and on multi-technology production capacities for vaccine and medicine manufacturing at European level, thus becoming over time an asset for the future HERA that we have already outlined, the incubator, last week. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonia, for this very comprehensive answer. Oliver, you have a follow-up nevertheless.
Yes, thank you. How do you measure whether what you plan to do here is successful? Do you have any numerical targets? Do you have any dates by which you want to come up with so and so many concrete projects? How do you measure the outcome of what you're doing?
I think, Oliver, that the answer to that question is rather simple. It is in our capacity to reach our objectives in terms of vaccination of EU our objective in terms of vaccination of the EU population, which, as you know, we have set at 70% of adults by the end of the summer, and also our capacity to quickly ramp up production after the development of vaccines that would address variants of the coronavirus that are appearing and may continue to appear in the future. So basically, it is not, targets related to industrial capacity per number of producer or whatever other metric you want to set. It is rather in terms of ensuring that we're able to make sure that there are no bottlenecks that stop us from delivering the doses that are necessary to reach our overall objective. Right. Now, I do not see any other questions for us on vaccines today. So let me move to another health-related question, and this time it concerns avian influenza. Thomas, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you. It's because I see, for example, through an interesting Reuters report this morning that the situation is not going well, particularly in Poland, more birds killed. This has an impact on public health, but also on agriculture with the prices of eggs increasing. It doesn't concern only Poland. So what is your level of concern and what can we report on these matters today from Brussels, if anything? Thank you.
I'm not quite sure what this, it's not Miriam. I'm not aware of any reaction on our side. You want to come in? Yeah.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Hi. Thank you very much for this question. Of course, this is avian influenza is something that we take very seriously, which is followed closely by the Commission and by the Member States. Very stringent veterinary measures are in place in the European Union. They seek first to prevent, obviously, the spread of the virus from wild birds to poultry, but also to contain any outbreaks in poultry. Temporary protection and surveillance zones are established in areas where infected birds are found. In these zones, movement of live animals is restricted. Poultry is confined indoors and closely monitored, and disinfection measures are strictly applied. So very specific measures are also in place to prevent infected birds entering the food chain. As I said, the Commission and Member States continue to follow this. Last week there was an amendment of all the measures of the overview of all the measures taken by the Member States in this specific area. I would perhaps therefore also invite you to take a look at our dedicated website pages, which are closely monitoring the situation of this flu. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stéphane. You got lucky there in terms of getting an answer, because I was not quite sure who was the spokes responsible. So to paraphrase Daft Punk, you got lucky. Any other questions for us today? I do not see any, so thank you very much and see you tomorrow for the college readout. Bye-bye.